What's up guys, it's Josh here back with another video and welcome to the KeepItTechie channel. Now, a little while back, I unboxed the 45 Homelab's HL8 NAS from 45 drives and gave you all my first impressions. And today I want to follow up and share what it's been like actually using this thing in my home lab and in my content creator workflow. Now, when I first started this project, I thought I was running out of space on my 20 terabyte Synology NAS. Later on, I realized the real issue was with my backups and snapshots being misconfigured. Now, once I fixed that, it bought me a little breathing room, but honestly, that just reinforced why I needed something more scalable and flexible going forward. And that's where the HL8 came in. And it's been an absolute dope addition to my home lab. And of course, I gotta give a big shout out to CIQ for helping me with this project. Not only are they behind Rocky Linux, but they also provided me with 4 Seagate Exos X20 20 terabyte drives, so I could really put that HL8 to work. And these are enterprise grade drives built for 24/7 use, which makes them the perfect match for the HL8. Now let's fully go through this thing. All right, so let's rewind back to when I first set this system up. The HL8 arrived pre-built, but of course, it didn't come with drives installed. So again, thanks to CIQ, but I was able to drop in 4 Seagate Exo X20 enterprise grade drives, each at 20 terabytes. And that gave me a total of 80 terabytes of raw capacity to work with. Now, when you're talking about this kind of storage, it's not just about the size, it's about the reliability. And that's why I was excited to get my hands on these drives. These Exo drives are built for data centers. They're designed to run 24/7 with higher endurance ratings than your standard consumer NAS drives. So from the start, I knew this was going to be a serious upgrade compared to the 20 terabyte Synology box I was running before. Now, installing them was straightforward. One of the things I really appreciate about the HL8 is that it uses a direct wired SATA backplane. There's no proprietary trays, no funky adapters. You just slide the drives in, push them until they click, and they're good to go. And that's something I wish more NAS vendors did, because when you're investing in storage, you don't want to be locked into some ecosystem where you have to buy specific trays or hardware just to replace a drive. Now, as I was installing these drives, I remember thinking back why I reached out in the first place. I thought I had completely maxed out my Synology. The storage alerts were going off, snapshots and backups were eating away at space, and I thought, okay, I need more capacity. Later on, I discovered it wasn't really the space that was the issue. It was my backup strategy. But by that time, I had already committed to setting up the HL8. Looking back, that was a blessing in disguise because the HL8 ended up becoming my main storage system anyway. Now, with each drive I slid in, I just kept thinking about the possibilities. I mean, 8 bays, enterprise class components, and a platform that runs Rocky Linux out of the box. For me, this meant I could finally have a system that wasn't locked down by vendor restrictions. I could choose ZFS, BetterFS, or even just traditional MD RAID if I wanted. And it meant I could integrate it into my home lab whatever way I wanted to, and not just the way a vendor dictates. Now, once the drives were installed, the next step was powering up the system. I've got to say, the Noctua cooling system really stood out. You've got 2 slim 120 millimeter fans pulling air across the drives, plus a smaller one on the side, and then the low profile Noctua cooler on the Ryzen processor. When I first turned it on, I was surprised at how quiet it was. And over the past few months, that's held true. It's been humming along on my desk without ever drawing attention to itself. Now, on the back, you've got your standard I/O from the Gigabyte B55i motherboard, HDMI, USB ports, Ethernet. Now, out of the box, it's just a single 1 gig NIC. But since this is a full PC motherboard, you've got the flexibility to add 10 gig networking if you want. And trust me, that makes a huge difference when you're pushing large video files across the network. Now, after cabling it up, I jumped into the BIOS to double check everything was running as expected. Temps looked good, all 4 drives were detecting right away, and the system recognized the full 64 gigabytes of RAM. And that's something that blew me away the first time I saw it. 64 gigs in a NAS box? I mean, for context, my Synology had 4 gigs total. So that jump gave me plenty of room to experiment with caching, containers, and VMs without worrying about memory constraints. And once the system was powered up and the drives were recognized, I moved into the software side, which I'll get more into in the next session. But here's what I can tell you. After months of using it, the drive installation process was simple, the system has been stable, and I haven't had a single failure or issue with the hardware. Also, the Seagate Exos drives have been running solid the whole time, so no errors, no weird noises, no overheating. That's exactly what you want from enterprise grade storage. Now, I think what impressed me the most about this stage was just how accessible it felt. If you're used to dealing with proprietary NAS enclosures, you almost expect headaches with drive swaps or compatibility. But here is just standard SATA. That means if down the road I need to expand or replace a drive, it's as easy as pulling one out and sliding in another. And because this is Linux underneath, I can build a storage stack exactly how I want. So with everything installed and the system up and running, I officially had an 80 terabyte raw storage pool ready to go. And after redundancy, of course, that works out to less, but it's still a massive upgrade over what I had before. And since then, it's become the backbone of my workflow. So whether I'm backing up my Proxmox VMs, archiving raw video footage, or editing projects directly over the network, the HL8 with the Exo drives has been able to handle it all. And the setup process from installing the drives to powering it on took less than I expected. It's one of those things where once it's done, it just fades into the background. And that's the best compliment I could give a NAS. So yeah, looking back on it, installing the drives was the easy part. Now the real magic came after I booted into Rocket with Houston and started building my storage pool, which I'll show you guys right now. Once I had the drives installed, I booted the HL8 into Rocket Linux, which comes preloaded on the system. And from there, the real magic happens with the Houston. Now, I've used a lot of different NAS interfaces over the years, like Synology's DSM, QTS, and Houston is totally different. It's open source, clean, and it makes complex storage setup surprisingly simple. Now, through the dashboard, I went ahead and built out a ZFS pool using the 4 Exo drives. But instead of, let's say, a RAIDZ1, I chose the RAIDZ2. Because with these large drives, 20 terabytes each, double parity just gives me more peace of mind. It means I can lose 2 drives at the same time and still keep my data safe. It does cut into usable storage, but for me, reliability is way more important. Now, the setup process itself was straightforward. In just a few clicks, I had a ZFS pool ready to go, complete with snapshots and compression enabled. Configuring something like RAIDZ2 in ZFS would mean a lot of command line work, but Houston made it super simple. I mean, after that, I created a couple of shares, SMB shares for Windows machines and NFS shares for my Linux systems. Houston made it simple to map users, set permissions, and get everything up and running quickly. Now, one thing I've appreciated over the past few months is how Houston doesn't just stop at storage. I've also been able to manage containers directly from the interface. For example, I set up Nextcloud for personal file syncing and Plex for media streaming, and both have been running smooth on that HL8. The biggest difference I noticed right away compared to my old setup was just how transparent everything feels. I can see exactly what's happening with my storage pool. I can monitor drive health, I can check system performance, all from the browser. And I know a lot of that can be done in, let's say, something like Synology DSM, which I've been using for years. The Houston UI made it very simple. And if I ever need to dig deeper, I can always drop into the Rocky Linux command line. Now, over time, RAIDZ2 has proven to be the right choice. I haven't lost a drive yet, but knowing I've got double parity protection and 80 terabytes of raw storage gives me a lot more confidence than I ever had with my Synology. It's one of those decisions you don't regret. So yeah, setting up through Houston was quick, but it's the long-term stability that impressed me the most. And that's what I'll cover in the next part. So after running this system for a while, here's who I think the HL8 is really built for. Definitely Homelab enthusiasts like me. If you want to learn Linux storage, ZFS, and container workloads, this is an awesome box that you should check out. Now, content creators, I definitely recommend this. If you're working with terabytes of raw footage, the HL8 with Exo drives makes editing and storage way easier. And Just so you guys know, this is not an ad. I'm giving you my honest opinion of who should purchase the HL8. Now, I also recommend it for small businesses because it's definitely great for backups, shared storage, and even light virtualization. Because at the end of the day, this is an enterprise class solution without vendor lock-in. Now, let me focus in on the pros and cons because I want to make this review totally honest because nobody's paying me to actually say anything. So give you the honest pros and cons of the system. Now let's start with the pros. So enterprise grade build paired with enterprise grade drives. That's always awesome. It ships with Rocky Linux and a Houston UI for stability and ease. Super simple to set up. I didn't have any issues setting this whole thing up. And also the Ryzen processor and the 64 gigabytes of RAM gives me more than enough headroom. And this is the best part, fully open and flexible. So no proprietary ecosystem lock-in. Now for the cons. Starting at around 1700 plus, it's definitely an investment. Now, one other thing, the Houston UI is still evolving. So some of the advanced features may need you to drop down to the command line. And then also, it requires more Linux knowledge than consumer NAS options, like a Synology driver or something to that effect. Now, for me, the pros outweigh the cons every time. I mean, it's powerful, reliable, and for what I need, future-proof. So that's been my experience with the 45 Homelab's HL8 NAS powered by Seagate Exos X20 drives. Now what started out as me thinking I was running out of space turned into an upgrade that completely reshaped how I handle storage. The HL8 has become the backbone of my home lab and my content creation workflow. And it hasn't let me down. Also, huge thanks again to CIQ for supporting this project and continuing to back the Rocky Linux community. I'll be diving into more advanced setups in future videos like snapshots, clustering, and maybe even trying this into Kubernetes workloads. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you invest in an open source NAS like this or stick with something like Synology or a DIY build? Go down and drop your thoughts in the comments down below. And thanks for watching. And as always, keep it techie. Yo, what's up, y'all? Listen, if you've been sitting there thinking about making a move, let me tell you, tech is where it's at. I don't care where you coming from, whether you've got a degree, a GED, or just pure hustle. There's room for you in this game. You see, tech is more than just keyboards and code. It's solving problems, creating opportunities, and building the future. You already have what it takes because tech doesn't care where you start. It cares where you're willing to go. You can teach yourself Linux, learn Python, break into cybersecurity, or even launch your own app. And the resources are out here for free. And yes, you heard me, free. Now, yeah, it's gonna take effort. You'll have to grind, but think about this. The time is gonna pass anyway. So why not invest it in a skill that'll change your life? I mean, tech doesn't just pay the bills, it opens doors to freedom, stability, and generational wealth. So stop doubting yourself, start small, stay consistent, and keep building. Because this isn't just a career, it's a movement. And guess what? You belong here. So let's get it, because the future is yours to build. Keep it techie.